Hello, my name is John Brink, and we are on the Brink podcasting from the capital of northern BC, Prince George. It's a bit of a crisp day today. It's, I believe, November the 28th. It's about 9 below. Not bad. Nice and sunny outside. All behind us is Prince George. I have a very, very special guest today. His name is Chris Hartmann. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. Thanks for inviting me in today.
Well, yeah, I'm very pleased to have you, and you have a very, very interesting career and a very, very interesting background. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you from the area? No, you were born in...
Yeah, I was born in Prince George.
In Prince George?
Yeah, grew up in Prince George.
Yes.
And then went away to university, then found work, in the Lower Mainland.
Where
and
then
first went to Trinity Western University in Langley.
In Langley, yeah.
And then after completing my bachelor's degree there, then went down
Psychology or?
in physical education.
Physical education, yeah.
And then after that went down to Western Washington University in Bellingham to do a master's program there in exercise physiology.
And what was the master's in?
In exercise physiology, and
yeah,
with a focus on adult fitness and cardiac rehabilitation, and that was the area of focus.
Interesting. And so then from there on in, you then started the career, and where did you locate then?
Yeah, there was a time where we were finishing up, both my wife and I. My wife's from Prince George as well.
Yeah.
And she was at Western Washington. So we were finishing up schooling. We both started our careers. She was working in Richmond, and I found work in Richmond
Did
as
she
well.
take the same?
No, she was in speech pathology.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so I got work with doing vocational rehabilitation with the Workers' Compensation Board at that time, now WorkSafe BC.
Yeah.
And retired from WorkSafe BC just this past year, a few months ago.
Yeah. Yeah, you to me look, you're still very young
Thank
fella.
you. Thank you.
So and then when you were doing your career, were you then located here in this region or?
Yeah, most of it was based out of Richmond.
But
in the early years, we had groups that traveled and did coverage in different offices when there was shortages in offices or summer vacation time. So
yeah.
I spent a lot of my time actually coming back to the Prince George office and working out of the office here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so always working mainly in the Prince George or BC area.
Yeah, worked here a lot, but worked around the province in those early years. And then later on, as the career kind of established a little bit more, I was much more focused on the Lower Mainland.
Yeah. So then, like about 20 years or so ago, there was this interesting sport, just a niche sport. My daughter actually introduced me to it, Tina, and they were doing, not many people were doing this, is that called disc golf?
Yeah, disc golf. Kind of started off 20 or 30 years ago as frisbee golf.
Yeah.
And then kind of made the transition into a more formal sport called disc golf. Yeah, and I know Tina, I know her from the Lower Mainland, live in the same area, and so we come across each other once in a while. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, a sport that I probably got really involved in it about 10 years ago. Yeah. When I coached some other sports with the kids, and once that kind of ended, then I was kind of looking around to what else to do, and it kind of captured my imagination, the whole sport, and started competing pretty close to 10 years ago.
Yeah, and you then started at the time that it became not just a niche, but there was more and more interest around it. And it really started exploding, likely during the COVID-19 period.
Yeah, we when I started, just as an example, we might have a provincial championships.
Right.
There might be 60 or 70 people show up for that.
Yeah.
Within 5 years of me starting, it was being sold out, 150 people. And today those events they sell out in minutes with hundreds of people playing in them.
Why, Chris? Why?
Yeah.
Because, explain to us what it is, because you got these discs, and then the reason that it also, the formal name is not golf now anymore, but they call it golf because it is the different, it's like a golf course, and there are X amount of number of baskets or, so explain to us a little bit about
the sport. Yeah, it's very similar to golf. If for most people will have a good idea of golf, that you are basically hitting a ball with a club towards a hole and getting it in the hole. And there's usually 18 of them, 9 or 18 on most courses. Disc golf follows a very similar kind of layout like that. Most of the courses have 9 holes or 18. Instead of hitting a golf ball with a club, you're throwing different types of discs, and ultimately to try to get it into the target, which, as you mentioned, is usually a basket with chains, metal chains, and you hit the chains and it drops into the basket.
Yeah.
And then you're finished that hole and you go on, and the person with the lowest score wins, just like golf.
Yeah. And you know, it's not easy, you know, and so, but it has all the elements. Maybe that's what is the attraction to fitness, because you're active physically, you're moving from location to location, so you're really physically really involved. What other attractions are there to it? You have to be have control over your arms in terms of how do you put it in the basket, right?
Yeah, I think one of the most attractive things of the sport, as people learn it and people try it, it's a pretty easy sport to learn. Golf, hitting a golf ball, a little tiny golf ball with a club, you know, at the end of a long stick, it's not an easy thing to do. And I think with disc golf, it's pretty easy to start. And most people have thrown frisbees around, and you know, at the beach or at the lake. And so it's really easy to start, but as you start to advance in the sport, the complexity and then just grows exponentially. There's different kinds of discs that travel, you know, different speeds, they have different shot shape, the way they fly in the air, and all those things can contribute to a really creative process. And there's just something about, you know, seeing something fly that you've thrown and glide through the air. The original inventor of the frisbee was trying to capture the fascination of spaceships, and you know, could we create our own little spaceships to get them to fly?
It's amazing sport to watch, and especially if you see people that are very good at it. You know, the discs. What do you call them? Frisbees?
Yeah, they're discs.
Yeah. And are they all the same or similar, or so if we go play and say there are, I don't know how many people playing all at the same time. If there were 6 playing, do they all use the same disc, or you take your own disc?
Yeah, everybody has their own discs.
Okay.
For those of us that compete a lot, most of us keep about 25 discs with us at any given time when we're playing. They're all different, and they all fly
because
different.
of
The shape when you throw them, they travel through the air differently. Some of them, there's putters and mid-ranges and drivers. The putters tend to fly a little bit straighter at slower speeds, and then the higher speeds that you get of discs, then they'll fly farther, but you have to throw them a lot harder, and they're much more of a sharp beveled edge.
And can you have with you, while you're playing in competition, more than one disc that you say, okay, for the next hole or the next basket, I'm going to use this one?
Yeah, every hole, just about, you're coming up and making that decision. First of all, what does the hole look like? What is the shape of the flight that I need for that particular hole to be the most successful, and choosing the disc that will give you that best chance. So some of them fly where they'll curve a little bit more to the right. Some of them will curve a little bit more to the left. Some of them will change direction a couple of times when you throw them. And then there's also different types of plastics, different weight. And they all have a little bit of a unique characteristic in the flight. So yeah, we all have our own discs, and we just like golf, you always think that the next fancy new disc is going to help you shoot lower. So it has that element as well. Yeah.
Now the other part that you do, because you're one of the pioneers more or less in this sport, right? You know, from where it went from transition of becoming niche to being something nice to do, and then moving into the professional area. And then there were even world championships. And I think you were in one of them, or a couple of them, maybe even, you know, that's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, it's, I was really fortunate to come in and enter into the sport at a time that it was making that transition from somewhat of a fringe kind of activity, sport, into becoming something that was quite organized with lots of events and the ability to go and play across Canada and in the US, and now more recently in the last few years even into Europe. But there's world championships, and Most of it is based on singles play, but every once in a while you'll have a team play, and I've been feel very fortunate to have had the ability to play with Team Canada playing at the World Team Championships over the last few years, and I would have never imagined at this point in time in my life to be able to have some of the experiences.
That's what is the amazing part about it. Chris, can I ask you how old you are? Or?
I'm 59.
Okay,
yes.
I'm 82, so if you want to ask me to.
Yeah.
So because you look so good and you're in good shape, and obviously, you're fit, because you have to be for that sport alone. Well, you probably are, period, anyway, because you're athletic as an individual. The other thing that you do is, which I always think is so unique, because we know that of what we call the normal golf, you have these professionals that do course design, which must be, again, a skill set that is unique. You do that as well. You've designed a number of courses.
Yeah, even right when I got started playing, there was always this fascination of the course, and the way the discs fly, and trying to create challenges to challenge people that can throw that way. And I used to play a lot of golf. We call ball golf, and sometimes in disc golf. But I used to play a lot, and you always looked around. You'd always see, I'd love to design. Wouldn't that be a good hole?
Yeah.
But in that sport, you're never really going to have the opportunity to design, a golf course.
Right.
Whereas along comes this new sport, and needed the growth of the sport, the growth of courses has been just exponential over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
There are about 15,000 courses now worldwide.
Yeah.
And just over 70% of them have been built in the last 10 years.
Wow.
So it's in British Columbia, or in Canada last year in 2021, there were 170 new courses built.
Wow.
And so it's again being fortunate to being involved in a sport that was growing, and then there's opportunity for people that want to take a certain part of it, whether it's competing or getting into the golf design or disc golf course design business and build business. It was mostly done by volunteers and all fundraising up until a few years ago, but now municipalities and private landowners are starting to see that there's, in some cases, a business case. Right. In other cases, just a really good amenity to have in a municipality, and for people to get outside.
Prince George has a couple of them, right?
Yeah, Prince George has one down at Rainbow Park that's been there for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And then a new one up at, the little Hart Highlands Golf Course.
Oh, yeah.
Or Hart Highlands Ski Hill, sorry.
Yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah, that's just a new one the last couple of years. And, because of that course in particular, there's a real growth of the sport here. Many of the communities around the province are, some have been really at it for quite a few years now and have developed a pretty large group. And I think Prince George is on that trajectory of once you get a core group of people that start organizing some things, and you get a little bit more infrastructure, then it really.
And it's not sensitive to age, right? So you can, that's another attraction about it, right?
Yeah, the course that I play on the Lower Mainland, which is in Aldergrove, we see retired couples out there. We see new couples. We see kids, families out there. Yeah. Moms with their teenage sons out playing, and it's really almost any demographic.
Which makes it very attractive, right?
Yeah. And different levels can play, depending on, like some courses, like that particular course, it's called Raptors Knoll Disc Golf Park. And that one has different teeing areas, just like you have in golf, for advanced players and beginners. Yeah. And so that allows people to go out and play together and be able to experience it together and still challenge themselves based on the level of play that's required of that particular layout.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then once you get to the international level, does it attract sponsors as well?
Yeah, sponsors are coming into the sport. Right now, the big sponsors tend to still be the manufacturers that are manufacturing the discs.
Right.
The top level athletes that are right at the top of our sport are now into the 7-figure endorsement deals.
Wow.
Sometimes multiple year deals, but many of them in 6 figures. But that's all been in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Prize money to events, if you looked 5 years ago, the top level prize money for a top pro event might be $5,000, and now they're starting to play $35,000 to $50,000 for a weekend. And that's just the growth of the sport
Right.
has just brought the manufacturers are just producing a lot more
Right.
discs and baskets and all those things, and you're starting now to see some other larger corporate entities starting to kind of dip their toe in a little bit, and some TV sports channels just starting to kind of experiment with it and be a little curious. So I think we're still at the beginning of an upswing in the sport.
Yeah, it sounds that way. Like just like I said, Tina, that my daughter, we both know her. You guys did a pair as well, that a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but did you guys did well?
Yeah. It's part of the sport is that it's really inclusive, and there's lots of mixing and so there's lots of events that you play with different partners, play doubles.
Yeah.
And so there's mixed doubles, and there's doubles at different levels, and there's club championships, and so it really draws people in, and you really get to know everybody in the sport.
Well, that's the beauty of it, right? And that a family can be proactive. All of them can be proactive in it, right?
Yeah. And in one of those events, it was a mixed doubles tournament, and so Tina and I got to play together, and so we had a pretty successful weekend that weekend.
Yeah, where was that again?
That was in I think that was down at Aldergrove. I'm trying to remember exactly which location it was.
Yeah.
I think it was in Aldergrove.
Yeah.
Of course, there.
Yeah, amazing. And so where do you see it go from here? Because now we look back 20 years ago. When I first got exposed to it, it was unique to find a discs course. Saying, well, there is one there. Okay, well, let's go there and let's see how it works. But now they are all over. So where do you kind of see it go from here?
Yeah, I think we're in a real transition time now. It's in particular with courses.
Yeah.
We know that every time a new course goes in, a whole bunch more people join into the sport. People that live around the course.
Yeah.
There's a lot going into the actual design of disc golf courses and just the infrastructure.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, it used to be a lot of just fundraising by a small group of people.
Yeah, I remember.
A corner of a park, and and that tended to be where it was at. And if you only had 30 or 40 people playing the course on a Saturday, it didn't really bother anybody. It was just kind of now with courses being full. The course that we have in the Lower Mainland last year, about 120,000 rounds estimated playing out there.
Oh.
And so there's different elements that now start to become very important to the sport and courses. One is safety, safety of the people playing on the course, and maybe other people that are using that space.
Yeah.
It's a really significant growing issues. And again, when there was only maybe 20 people playing on a day, there maybe weren't that many safety issues, but if you have 150 or 200 people playing in a day,
all of a sudden the disc come flying at you.
Yeah.
But if you got hit by one, that would not be very good, would it be?
No, especially if somebody's throwing it at a pretty good pace and throwing one of the drivers, it tends to be a little bit more lower profile.
Yeah.
You can have some pretty serious injuries if you're. Yeah. So the courses now, the discs are becoming, people can throw them farther, and faster, which also creates a bit more risk. Yeah. So that's a big part of it. And then the environmental concerns are also becoming an increasingly important issue for us that are
in course design. You mean
in course design? Yeah.
That's one of your specialties as well, right? Course design.
Yeah, we several years ago started getting involved in just designing courses. Another person that I played with, his name is Stuart McKissick. We played a lot together. We went to the States a lot, and we didn't really have a course like that here that we would play when we went to the States. So we started just talking a lot about courses, got involved in designing temporary courses that you just pop up for a weekend, and then just slowly over time just got more involved in it. And a couple of years ago we formed a company and incorporated a company that now specializes in designing and sometimes installing brand new courses as well. So that's been a lot of fun. It's been a real challenge in some cases, but the whole, getting to know the environmental issues. And so it's been fun. We enjoy it, and there's nothing better than seeing something that you've worked on and produced and seeing people laughing and smiling as they come off the course. It's really rewarding that way.
Well, you develop the expertise right from the ground up, more or less, and then I can see that it is a specialty, because then you have to anticipate the market in terms of how many people are going to play here all at once, and what happens to the discs and the environment, and then potentially clubhouses properly, and how do you manage it? Because all of a sudden, I don't know how that works, but I believe that the baskets are like this, and so there you want to go play, and half the boxes are gone because somebody took them with them.
Yeah. No, it's all part of building the sport, and as I mentioned, it's kind of it was a really unique opportunity to become involved in something that's growing and brand new, and it presents opportunities for people who get to be creative and have some fun with it and see where it leads.
So when you're part of the Canadian team, the national team, and where do they compete? Do they compete internationally, or is it an annual event or biannual, or?
Yeah, it's the World Flying Disc Federation puts on a World Team Championships every 2 years.
Okay.
The very first one was held in Vancouver, actually, and I forget the year, 2013 maybe.
Okay.
Maybe I might be off on that a little bit. But the last 3 years, the last three championships have been in Europe. And that way it draws a lot more countries because the countries are so much closer to each other there. So another an opportunity. We played in England several years ago. We actually won the World Championships there.
Wow.
Team Canada did, which was just an amazing experience in a sport that is so much about playing singles. The ability to play with a team, and the way the team at that time was set up is you had to have female players. There were female players on your team. You had to have a couple of players over the age of 40. So that's where I get a chance. And then the younger players, the open players, and also at that time it was juniors. You had to have one player that was under the age of 18, all as part of your team.
And then they were judged on the basis of cumulative?
Yeah, it was all match play.
So
you went and played, and some of it was singles, and then some of it was doubles. So sometimes the junior might play with the open player. Sometimes the junior might play with the women players. And so it's mixed up. Every round is something a little bit different. And you're playing for points. And if you win your match, you get the points associated with it. But you're playing really against another team from another country, like your whole team. And so it's just wins and losses, and then you go play a bunch of round robin, and then go into elimination finals. And it's pretty exciting.
The other thing that I kind of wondered about, right now it's supposedly winter, but we haven't seen too much winter yet. When it is snowing and it's winter, is this a sport that you can play year-round virtually?
Yeah, people do. We of course know lots of people out in Ontario and Alberta, and they play year-round. Crazy enough, they'll be out there sometimes even when it's 20 below. If it gets a little colder than that, it maybe gets a little cold. The discs also tend to get a little brittle. So you don't use your best ones at that point, but people do still play throughout the winter. And if there's deep, fresh snow, some people will even tie old cassette tapes, a little ribbon, so if the disc disappears under the snow, the ribbon stays on top, and they can find their disc.
That's a good idea. Right?
So
still evolving in all those areas.
When you kind of get the bug for it, to sit and wait for 3 or 4 months and not play, people get pretty creative. And anytime it gets a little warmer, they're out throwing.
It's interesting for you, Chris, that you saw it evolve. You're so involved in it now, and you're already well known on an international level. And you probably, does it preoccupy you pretty much most of the time now, disc golf?
Yeah, it's a big part of life right now. It does, like I say, even the travel. The coursework is something a little bit newer, and so starting the company, of course, takes a bit of effort and some time just to get it going and get those firsts of everything done. I'm also involved with the competing and with the course in the Lower Mainland, and then this last year also involved with Trinity Western University of starting the first collegiate disc golf team in Canada. So we'll be competing once we get into February, March, April, we'll be competing with universities in the U.S. and finishing off with the national championships in North Carolina.
North Carolina.
So that, again, starting up a program, and that the university feels that this is a future sport for the university level of athletics, and just decided to get it started, and have the opportunity there to work with a group of young students that are, curious about the sport. Some of them are pretty new to the sport, and some of them with a little bit more experience. So again, getting that all started up takes time and effort as well.
You see, the beauty of something like this would be, in my mind, being entrepreneurial, and then, but especially starting a new business like disc golf, and having been so much part of it like you have from the time that there's a niche, and then really being part of it, of growing it, and then competing on the national level and being successful, and seeing evolve from there on fairly rapidly forward, and then building a company around it, which is a bit of a challenge, because you have to anticipate as to where will it go, what will it look like, and you have to stay up or ahead of it as to anticipate what comes next.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the fun and part of the opportunity. You're not joining something that's been very well established. You're kind of starting with ideas, and you're not alone either. You're working with other people along the way, and the sport itself is very heavily driven by volunteers.
Yeah.
All the major events are almost all run by volunteers, and the sport itself to play is almost always free. There's only a small percentage of courses that are free, and so you're participating in something that really has the ability to grow
and family oriented, right?
Yeah. And that's why I think we're seeing the number of people participating now doubling and tripling each year over the last several years.
So if there's a number of families that will be watching this podcast, and they will say, okay, give me more information. So where can I go on social media and then become more familiar with it? And how do we go about it as a family? Do we go someplace to take lessons, or initially to become kind of knowledgeable about it?
Yeah, it's say in Prince George as an example, if we use that as an example, there's a pretty good group of people that are really getting the sport going here. They've started a formal club here now.
Okay.
And I think it started this year in 2022.
Okay.
They've got a Facebook page. They've got a website, Prince George Disc Golf Club or Disc Golf Society.
Okay.
And so making contact and just saying, hey, we're new. Would somebody be able to come out and show us what the sport's all about?
Yeah.
They'll always jump forward and come and help out people that are new to the sport.
Yeah.
They do have league nights and things that you can get involved with. I think there was a ladies' night that was starting this year as well.
Wow.
Both at Rainbow Park and up at the ski hill. I'm aware of one, Stride and Glide in Prince George. They have a full selection of discs as well. I'm not sure if there's any other businesses in Prince George that are selling them, but they're available at least through Stride and Glide.
But once you go and you go online, you start with disc golf, Prince George, then from there it will lead you in the other directions. Everybody's very, very closely connected, right?
Yeah. YouTube is a great place to go just to find out about the sport. There's a couple of videos that are called This is Disc Golf or What is Disc Golf? And that kind of gives you at a higher level what it looks like. But then you can plug in the World Championships or the events, the professional tour that's almost every weekend, although they've got a 2 or 3 month break. But all those events you can watch on YouTube. The lead cards are that are all on YouTube. They tend to post-produce them down into a half an hour for 9 holes. And so we can watch these events happening, all over, even in events in Europe as well. They're there to watch. So lots there.
Yeah, you see, if I would be watching it, then what is the skill set uniquely that somebody makes the same people kind of excel in it? Why? What makes them so good? Because I've watched it, and some people are uncanny how good they are in doing that. What is the skill set that you develop or work towards?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. We see a lot of athletes from a lot of different sports are picking it up. There's a lot of people that used to golf a lot. Yeah. And myself, the person that I work in the company with, he used to be a scratch golfer, and it's just all disc golf now. Yeah. So understanding the game of golf certainly leads into figuring out the game. Yeah. But other sports, you see, for some reason, a lot of volleyball players seem to gravitate towards disc golf. It seems to be pretty common. But we see people from all sports. I think anybody who's played any kind of sport will pick up the competitive side of it and try to figure it out. Yeah. That being said, I'd say most of the people that are playing at the main course that I play at in the Lower Mainland, most of the people there probably haven't played a lot of sports, and it's just something new, and they're in the neighborhood and they see it and they come out and they're just hooked. Yeah. And the level of play, all the tournaments that we have, there's always multiple levels, right from novice right up to pro level, and so people don't feel like they have to be at a certain level to go and participate in those kind of events. Yeah. It's all different levels and juniors and everything. So I think that's part of the draw. It doesn't cost a lot to play. Yeah. And everybody's thrown frisbees around at some point in time in their life, so they can all start. Yeah, it comes kind of natural because when you see a frisbee or a disc golf, you want to throw the disc. Yeah, right? Exactly. It comes kind of automatic. Right? Yeah, so, yeah. You see it, you want to throw it, right? Yeah, well, obviously, the sport of ultimate, which is a disc sport, especially during COVID, we had a lot of people from ultimate coming in because they weren't able to play together anymore. Yeah. But disc golf was able to kind of keep playing almost through the whole pandemic. Yeah. And so we saw a lot of people come from ultimate into disc golf. Yeah, that gave it a boost, right? In a lot of ways. Yeah. Because people were looking for things they could do regardless of that. Yeah, right? Absolutely. So, yeah. Probably right before COVID hit, it was on a pretty steep trajectory. Yeah. But it certainly got a bit of a turbo boost from exactly what you're saying. Yeah. People are looking for things to do and get out of the house, right? Yeah. So it appears to me you really enjoy it as part of your life, and there you retired from the profession that you were in. Relatively early, and then found your next passion, and obviously are very good at it, and it became not just a hobby. But people always say, you find a hobby so you got something to do after you retire. But this is much more than a hobby. This is more than a hobby. Not only a career, it rises to those levels. Yeah, it's definitely more than just a hobby, especially with the business getting started and being involved in working with municipalities and helping them build infrastructure within their communities. It's pretty rewarding and challenging at times as well. Different issues come up in all of those situations, but it's all part of creating something and allowing other people to have the opportunity to participate in this sport. And so many sports are costing more and more money to participate in. Exactly. And this is one that people can go out and parents can play with the kids. They're not sitting on the sideline. And that's the other part. Everybody can participate at the same time for all that matters, right? Yeah, they're not, the parents aren't sitting on the sideline. Yeah. Watching spending an hour and a half watching. They're actually there participating with them. And there's a lot of young families starting to get involved, and you just know 10, 15 years from now, these young kids that have been now playing since they were little are going to be they're going to be fantastic disc golfers for sure. It reminds me in a way of I've been writing books, and I wrote one. I'm going to give you a copy of it. Thank you. Afterwards, after we get together. So the one that I wrote is this one, Against All Odds. I'll show it to the camera, and then I'll show it to you. Against All Odds, and I'm going to give and sign it to you. And then I wrote another one, ADHD Unlocked. Reason that I wrote that is because I'm ADHD. It took me till I was 57, by pure coincidence, that I found out that I had ADHD. When I went into a bookstore, I opened a book, and Driven to Distraction was the title of it. And as I was standing there, and I looked at it, and I said, "Oh my God, that is me." That's me. And
and I bought the book and I wrote in Dutch, and now I finally know who I am, because I was somewhat ashamed of it, because that meant you had a mental issue or a mental problem. I was not very good at school. I failed grade 3. Nobody fails grade 3. And I failed grade 7 3 times. And then they finally said, oh, God, we'll have to find a job for him, or we send him to the mentally challenged school. So it always kind of affected me in a way, and and feeling that I had failed in that area, and then came to Canada because we were liberated by the Canadians, and then wanted to follow my dream and build a lumber mill and succeed in my way. And part of that was also, that, then I wanted to write a book. It was kind of unique, but if I did it, it had to be well done, an autobiography like this one. And, so I always say it took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, and 2 years to write it. And then, that then became somewhat of a passion, being quite popular actually. And then the more I did that, the more I started to think about, in particular, ADHD and people that are affected by attention deficit disorders, or had been affected by trauma and became slow learners, that, to be more open about it and to remove the stigma, especially from ADHD. And over and over again, more and more people are speaking about it now. It's more and more integrated into the learning process that those people that are adversely affected by it, and it's becoming increasingly more popular, especially this book now. But the other part about it was that I'm doing another book right now, and that comes somewhat to what happened to you in a positive way, is that the book, I'm not quite sure about the title, but it will be likely Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream. And so many people that I know of, this does not apply to you, but that applies to you in particular, at a fairly older age, although you're still young, but when you retired, you found this disc golf, but already did it, and it became a passion to you, but at the same time it exploded, and you right in the middle of it, and it's part of your life. And so the purpose of the book is that so many people are doing things that they say, oh, I hate my job, I wish I would have done something different, or at some point they do not like it anymore, and that affects their whole life. And I say, well, if that is the case, turn a new direction, find something different, because it's such an important part of your life to, get up in the mornings and like what you're doing, and look at opportunities and explore that. And again, you are an example of that, and what you have done and now sharing with us is that you found your passion after retirement of a very interesting career, and all of a sudden you find this whole new direction, and and it's already obvious that you love it, and it is growing as you do it and pursue it, right?
Yeah, it's I never would have imagined, that I've been involved in different sports and, my whole life, and lots of different ones.
Right.
And never would have imagined that, after the age of 50, I would have some of the best, sports experiences of my life. I never would have imagined that.
No.
And whether it was in that sport or something else, as you mentioned, this was one that just was an emerging sport, so there were opportunities that maybe weren't available. But I think it's also looking at being open and trying things, and just doing lots of different things, and trying things that eventually you come across those things that you tend to be more passionate about, and that tend to enrich your life in just ways that you sometimes wouldn't have even imagined. Sometimes it can be a continuation of what you. I mean, I've thrown frisbee since I was a kid, and always, seeing that disc fly was always something that was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
My dad and I used to play at Langley Park on Saturdays, and during the summers we'd be there for hours, just throwing a disc back and forth and kicking a soccer ball, and never would have imagined what that could translate into later in life. So I feel very fortunate that the timing of
was perfect.
Was really it just kind of fell into my lap in so many ways.
Yeah, but you're also fit, I can tell, and part of that is already must have been part of your life, likely diet for one, and being healthy physically and mentally, and enjoying that, because that's why you went to the university in Bellingham and then became involved in physical fitness and sport oriented issues, right?
Yeah, sports has always been a real core, part of, who I am. I always needed to be trying something new or competing, and it's just, striving to see, what you can make of something.
And it keeps you mentally, physically healthy, right? Because the one is connected to the other.
Absolutely.
So, and I found that myself, and I hear from some people, but and for me, I've always been physically active, but not so much. Initially, when I was young, I did judo. I got a brown belt in judo when I was 17, in Holland, and then I was drafted into the Air Force when I was 18 for 2 years, and then from there on in, I was physically active. Soccer was another thing. I love to play soccer. What's happening now, obviously.
Yeah.
And that because growing up in Holland, that was part of what we did. You played soccer, and But then the other fitness. Then for a period in life, when I was building company and doing entrepreneurial stuff, I wasn't as healthy as I could have been. And then there is always something happens that triggers it. I was the same as some people are. Then you make this commitment at New Year's Eve and saying, I'm going to go to the gym and sign up, and then you do it for a week, and then there's all kinds of reasons that you can't, and then it kind of disappears. Like in my case, I nearly died. I had a case of diverticulitis, and it came very close to putting the lights out for me, and that kind of triggered it with me, where I said, I'm going to have to become more serious about healthy lifestyle and in particular fitness. And I went to the gym, started in a serious way doing that when I was probably in my early 70s, and and then already quite older, and I was out of shape. And gyms are intimidating places, right? Especially when you go there initially and you don't even know how to use the equipment, and all these other people look so perfect. Anyway, so then what I did is I hired a trainer. I worked with the trainer, took it very, very serious, was committed, went to the gym at least 7 to 10 hours a week, working with the trainer. Did it for about 5-6 years, and then one day somebody said to me, have you ever thought about competing? I said, me? Really? And they said, well, yeah, you should think about it, And I started kind of looking at myself and this and that, and I was in pretty good shape. And then with my trainer, we cranked it up, and then in 2017, we started competing here locally, and bodybuilding physique, and I came in third on bodybuilding, second in physique, which qualified me for the provincials. Came in second in bodybuilding and third in physique on the provincial level, which qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. And so, case in point, I was the oldest one in Vancouver on the provincials at 77, then. And then obviously COVID came, and then for 2 years I didn't do as much. But then about 7-8 months ago, I'm again training for competing, and I just turned 82. And so I'm not, and in a serious way, this is not tittle-tattling around the gym. This is being serious. And, and now getting again ready for competing. Probably, I was going to compete in November, but that didn't quite work for me. So probably be January, February, where I'm going to compete again on the provincial level, and then hopefully, which I believe I will, get to the national in the Arnolds.
Yeah.
And so case in point is that I love going to the gym, and I love to have a goal and an objective, and at the same time, but I say everything is possible. So now I am the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America at 82.
Yeah.
It can be done. And I, like you in my sport, as you get older, and then either you can, and I see that so often with people is saying, well, I'm too old for this, or I'm not at whatever age, and no, I don't do that, and I should have done this, but I couldn't. And I said, no, anytime that you want to do that, it's important, because then it gives you a goal, it gives you the passion, and at the same time, that what life is all about is that to stay mentally active, physically fit, and then I want to die old being young, and everything is possible.
Yeah, I think the goals are really important, right? It's so much easier when you're working towards something. Even you going to the gym, knowing over time you knew what you were working towards, and I think that's why sometimes it happens when there's a crisis of some sort that people
triggers
then,
it, right?
The goal becomes very much like in front of you, right? The goal hits you.
Yeah.
But in other ways, it's identifying, what do I want out of this, and being able to look ahead. For me, I look forward and saying, here's what I'd like to accomplish this year.
Yeah.
And then what are the steps?
And that's the point, right?
Yeah.
You set a goal and you work towards that, and you take it serious, right? So
and that kind of helps you through the times when you maybe don't feel quite so motivated, right?
Yeah.
If you're just doing it for the sake of doing it,
no,
then you have a few days, and before you know it, other things become more of a priority.
Yeah.
But if you've got those goals that you've set for what you want out of it,
exactly,
then it allows you to when it's pouring rain, if you're a runner and it's pouring rain outside or it's -10, then you still go out and do it, because it's part of reaching a goal. It's not just something you're doing for the sake of doing it.
Yeah, and that's the whole point, right? So, and then the other part is that, at 59 or at 82, I feel great, so, and I can run circles around a lot of people, that are half my age, and the same in the gym, but not only in the gym, every day-to-day things. I enjoy life, I'm active, and, the key is stay healthy mentally and physically.
Yeah, I think it's intention, right? You have to, again, that's, if you're working towards that and you want to do it, then you find those ways to continue to participate. And as we get a little older, the whole injury prevention is also a really important part. For me, in my sport, that's, a year ago I was starting to struggle with just aches and pains, and so then, reaching out and finding, you found your coach in the gym, and I reached out and found somebody that could coach me on that side of our sport, and it's amazing what difference it makes, just taking those first few steps. And sometimes you don't feel like it, but staying with it for a few months, then you start to look back, and especially if you're doing something physically and it's unusual, and how your body adjusts to that, and
how you can reach those levels. Because even from the time that I was competing 2017, 2018, becoming a national competitor, and qualifying for the Arnolds, and being in an environment like the provincials in the big Pacific Coliseum down by the water, there must have been 250 athletes, male, females, all competing either showing bikini or bodybuilding of different levels, male and female, and every single one that was there belonged there, because the effort that was put into it took years and years to develop that. I even found, Chris, that the 2 years where I was not doing as intensive training because of COVID, you could do still some, but not to the same level, that 7-8 months ago I picked it up again, and I'm virtually back to where I was when I was competing. And but the key to me has been working with the trainer, and the trainer that I'm working with is Kendall Kershaw, and she is an amazing trainer. I've known her for a long time. Her and me competed together in Vancouver. She was the youngest at 17, and I was the oldest at 77.
Yeah.
And she has gone through the ranks, and again, good guidance, good, it's somebody that knows you what you can and cannot do physically and push yourself to the limit. All of that is possible, even when, somebody like myself in your 80s.
Yeah. No, I think it's amazing. I would have never thought when I was in my 30s that when you're getting into your 50s and 60s that you could still enjoy, sport, and there is the competitive side. I think the social side is so important, and as we've learned over the last few years, having things that you can do to be out with people and socialize is so important for health, overall health, and these are the kinds of things you get a chance to meet with other people and do something that you enjoy doing together. And some days you're competing against them, and some days you're just out enjoying the sport and enjoying the social aspect of it as well. It's been an interesting, really interesting journey. I feel very fortunate that I've found myself in the middle of this weird kind of sport that was on the fringe a little while ago, and more people are starting to get involved.
And you found your passion. Not only did you find it, it kept you busy and you became an entrepreneur, but you're very good at it. And that's the other amazing part about it is and that's why we both are a good example for people that are watching us, is saying that at 59, you're still a world level competitor in your sport. And then for myself at 82, I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. A lot of people my age, they have given up a long time ago. And the quality of life that you get from it, and your whole life around you, that takes work, it takes effort, but extremely rewarding. And every day when you get up, you have this dream ahead of you, and you're feeling good about it. It keeps you busy and all that stuff about it, but it makes you feel good. It keeps you healthy. It gives you a goal and an objective.
Yeah, along the way, it's there's so much talk about investing, for the future and for your retirement, and almost always it's about the money side of it. Yeah. But I think it's really important as we go through our whole of life is to lay down some of those pathways that we can then come back to sometimes, or just continue to do when we're older. I think it's just remaining physically active through your whole life in whatever way that allows for you to rely on those kinds of foundations that you've built. And I always think that's you're investing then in your future. When you're 30 and 40 and 50, you're still investing your in this case your wellness. And where do you get wellness from? And not something that we should wait and think about when we turn 70. It should be something that we're working on all the time.
But if for some reason or another we did wait until we're 70, it's still not too late.
It's still
because
possible.
That's when I started. In earnest, right? And so what I'm saying is that even then, you can still say it's too late. This is not going to work. No. All of that is still available, and that's why I believe your sport is so unique as well. Because from a physical fitness perspective, everybody doesn't have to be a world level bodybuilder. I'm not suggesting that, but or disc golfer, but at least find something that brings the family into it, keeps you physically active, mentally and physically, and disc golf is obviously a perfect way of doing that.
Yeah, it's it really covers off all those things, right? There's new friendships established, and if you people just go out during the week and in the evenings after work, or if they're retired, they go out during the day. If you want to compete and go down that path, you can compete at all those different levels. There's a world championships for people over 70, over 80, over 65.
What better way, right? So the
and all those good things all come along with it.
Yeah. Now the other thing, I'm going to give you a copy of my book here, and I'm going to sign it for you. And then I'll give you this one as well.
All right, thank you very much.
And then, Chris, it was a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, very nice having a conversation.
And congratulations. And, I'm going to follow you as you go through your next career, if you wish, your entrepreneurship. And I wish you all the luck.
Yeah, and all the best with your continuing work in the weight room. And I'll continue to ask Tina how you're doing.
And we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, you bet. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for
the pleasure.
Podcast.